Bay West Church meets at 100 Emerson Road in Palm Bay at 11 a.m. on Sundays. We're glad you decided to check us out. God has a specific message of hope for your life and mine today. So listen up.
If you came here for the first time, you know it was a little bit different than normal, but that's all right because we're focusing on our life groups. We're focusing on being a part of the community of God. A lot of times people think church is simply we just come together in a big meeting and we don't really talk to anybody, we don't make eye contact, and then we kind of go home and we've done our due diligence for today. But that's not really what church is about. Church at its heart is about community. And this alignment series that we're doing is about the core values that Bay West was started with. You know, a lot of times you can do your best work when you're working with people who are working toward the same ends as you. And when we started Bay West, we knew we wanted to follow Jesus. We knew we wanted to be a light for Christ in Palm Bay, but we wanted to know what specific area do you want us to focus on, God? And so we took several couples that when we started Bay West, and we sat down and we came up with 6 core values. And you see them over there, they're called the 6. You know, and they're kind of the subgroup under, when we're following Jesus, what does that look like? This is a great thing. It's a great diagnostic. If you want to teach somebody how to follow Christ, you know, there's 6 areas to go through. If you want to look at somebody having a problem in your life, a good way to look is, okay, man, you know, I'm having a problem in this area. Man, am I seeking God faithfully through His Word and prayer for direction, not just a suggestion? Am I really loving everyone? Am I participating in worship? You know, am I cultivating relationships with God's purposes in mind? Do I give and serve generously? You know? Or do I live a life that's all meant to communicate Christ? Usually I find in one of those areas, all our problems kind of fall under one of those things. And today we're talking about the core value of cultivating relationships with God's purposes in mind. You know, we get that really from there's a verse we associated with each one of these that really kind of led us to it. And it's cultivate relationships with God's purposes in mind. There's a verse that we get to where we talk about that specific each specific core value. And this one actually comes from a famous story in the New Testament. Anybody heard of Zacchaeus? The story of Zacchaeus. Okay, I'm going to give you a refresher. If you have not, no big deal. Zacchaeus was a tax collector. And in the olden days, tax collectors, everybody hated them. I mean, it's kind of like today. Nobody likes it when you come take your money. But the bad thing about tax collectors is back then, the way they made their money was really by overcharging people for taxes because they had the backing of the Roman government. So they were basically cheating the taxpayer for a living. And it says that Zacchaeus was a very wealthy man, so he cheated a lot of people and was really good at it. So nobody liked him at all. And he was a short guy. And so Jesus was coming to his town, and everybody wanted to see this phenomenon. It was Jesus, right? And so it says the crowd pressed up against the streets, and he was so short he couldn't see over the crowd. You know, I get that. I'm a short guy. I've always wanted to be 6'6" and play for the Sixers, just like my idol, Dr. J, but it wasn't going to happen that way. You know, and so he climbed up a sycamore tree so that he could see Jesus. And as the story goes, Jesus comes right over to him and says, hey, man, I need you to come down out of that tree because I got to hang out with you today. And everybody was mad because they didn't like Zacchaeus. And they're like, what's up with this Jesus guy? He's supposed to be this, you know, this connection to God. And he was going to hang out with this sorry person. So he goes over and hangs out with Zacchaeus at his house. And Zacchaeus becomes a follower of Christ. And you see Zacchaeus immediately, the first thing he did, he says, I'm going to go back and I want to repay everybody that I've cheated, but I'm going to pay them more than what I took from them. I'm going to make it worth their while in a way, I guess. But he's trying to reconnect these relationships that he's damaged. And you see Jesus say in Luke 19:10, says this. He said, for the Son of Man came to seek and save those who are lost. See, that is Jesus' mission statement, wrapped up in the core of relationship with people. And the gospel is a relational thing. It's a thing that I have to tell you, I have to show you. We go together on things. We come together. It's passed person to person. But as I was thinking about the story, I thought about a second story that's very similar to it back in Luke chapter 5. And basically what this is there's a guy in a very similar situation to Zacchaeus. He can't get to Jesus for the crowd. And in Luke 5, verse 18, it says this: "So some men came carrying a paralyzed man on a mat and tried to take him into the house that lay before Jesus, to lay him before Jesus. And when they could not find a way to do this because of the crowd's so thick they can't get him through, they went up on the roof and lowered him on his mat through the tiles into the middle of the crowd right in front of Jesus." I got news for you. If I got a group of friends, I want them to be those guys. Dudes that if Jim needs it, man, we're going to find a way. We're going to cut a hole in the roof. If we got to, we'll get you up there. We will get you there. Don't you love to have those guys in your life? We will get it done. You love to get it done people in your life. And that's the way these guys were. And so Jesus then healed him, and obviously much to the frustration of a lot of the church leaders around because they didn't like I did it. So, it's amazing how it happens sometimes. But, what was similar about these two stories? When you had two guys that desperately needed some healing. Zacchaeus had a social issue. That was caused by a sin issue in his life. And so a social issue caused by a sin issue, Jesus fixed it with a spiritual answer. And that's all the problems really in our life when we get down to is how we're reacting to a lot of these, and they come back to a spiritual thing. But so you have Zacchaeus has got a social issue problem that's caused by sin. This guy has a physical ailment. They both need healing from Jesus, and they both can't get to Jesus because of the crowd of people. But what's different about these two stories? Anybody? Zacchaeus didn't have any friends to help him. See, the guy that was paralyzed couldn't get to Jesus, and he needed people around him to help him get to Jesus. One of the things about Zacchaeus, it's amazing. You see this dearth of relationship in Zacchaeus' life because, as I said, the first thing that Zacchaeus does when he accepts Christ, first thing we see recorded, and you got to think about what God allowed to be written in the Bible because it's what you need to hear when you read that. It's important. All of it. It's an economy of words. The first thing that he did was said, look, I'm going to go make up with all these people that I've defrauded. I'm going to go and try to reconcile these relationships. What Zacchaeus realized at that moment, he realized that the relationships he had with people were part of his relationship with God, with Jesus. Do you realize that the relationships that you have with people are a part of your relationship with Jesus? And Jesus teaches us about himself by our interactions with other people, how we love them, how they tick us off, how we still love them anyway, how, we tick somebody off. We have to go apologize. We got to work this out. We teach them more about following Christ. They teach us more about following Christ. And this relationship in between, God uses in our lives. Our relationships. You realize that his relationships with people were part of his relationship with Jesus. And we need to understand that too. It's valuable. It's not enough to just come to a meeting and don't make eye contact with anybody and go home. The church is meant to be a family and a community. Same is true with us. Jesus initiated the church to help us understand him through the community that we have with each other. As Rick Warren pointed out in the opening video, those guys for the paralyzed man, they were the guys that had his back. They were the guys that they were looking out for him. And we always want people like that in our life, especially to help us get closer to Jesus. Imagine how much easier things would have been for Zacchaeus had he had a group of men around him to help him. Imagine how much easier that would be. We need to see our relationships with others as directly part of our relationship with Jesus. We need a group of people around us headed in the right way that helps us get closer to Jesus. I want to tell you, all the relationships in your life, believe it or not, we're talking about cultivating relationships with God's purposes in mind. We're talking about that. It means every relationship that you have is really built by God to be a demonstration or a ministry or a growth engine for you to know more about Christ and for you to help others know more about Christ. That's really what everything is for, but especially relationships. All your relationships in your life should really fall into three categories. One, where you're learning from those who are kind of farther down the road than you are. People who've been Christians longer and they've been through where you are, like what he talked about in the video. Also, people that you're walking with on the mutually same level. You kind of came to Christ about the right place. You're going through the same stuff right now. Maybe you get your kids at the same age. You're struggling with some of the same stuff. It's good to have somebody beside you that you're kind of learning together. But not only that, but the third area is reaching people who've never followed Christ, people reaching back. People who don't know Jesus or who are farther behind the road, who are struggling in an area that you've seen God show you victory in your life, you share that victory with them. When they have no hope, you bring out the hope. Hey, I was there. God has brought me through it. I'm still serving God. There's a brighter day on the other side if you trust Christ. And you help them walk through that. Those three relationships, people you're learning from that are farther down the road, people you're learning from that are mutually on the same level, around the same way, and people that you're pulling along and helping come to know Jesus. All your relationships fall into that. Really, to be in a life group, there's really three reasons to have a life group. And I stole these from Rick Warren too, so not the whole thing, but just this part. And there's really three. I didn't go like, okay, we go. But there are three reasons, and they're great. And so I'm not going to butcher them by trying to redo them in my way. One is for mutual accountability. Mutual accountability. We need people who would direct us to the right thing as far as Jesus is concerned, and help hold us accountable to that. In our world, it's very easy. Everybody just says, hey, just accept anybody, whatever they do, it's okay. It doesn't really matter. And the sad thing is where you lose in that kind of relationship, you gain all this acceptance that is meant to be from the God. Jesus loved people. But you lose the accountability that it helps you stop doing things that are damaging to yourself and others around you. We need people that will hold us accountable. We need people that say, when we say, well, I just think this, and you go, well, I love you very much, and you know I do, and I care very much about you. But the Bible says this, so if you keep doing that, you're going to cause yourself damage. Now, I'm going to be here if you do. I'm going to try to help you through it. But you're going to keep knocking yourself in the head with that hammer if you keep doing differently than what the Word says. And I want to see you do that the right way so that you're better and the people around you are better. There's also mutual encouragement. Ephesians 4:29 says, let everything you say be good and helpful so that your words will be an encouragement to those who hear them. Man, that just cuts me because it just really cuts out that sarcastic part when I make fun of people. That kind of, that cuts out that. I did that a lot in college, and everybody laughed because I could make fun of people really well. And then I came to find out, here's the downside of that. You start getting extremely self-conscious because you think everybody else is doing that to you and you can't do anything. I mean, when you become that person, and I read this, I saw this, I'm like, I need to be encouraging people. And man, that's hard sometimes. But mutual encouragement in a group of people that you trust, that you know are heading the right way. We need encouragement. Not only that, but we need mutual honoring. Romans 12:10 says, love each other with genuine affection and take delight in honoring each other. Do you take delight in honoring someone else? When you see the person, you know what I like to do? When I see someone who's working at a job that may be menial and that people may not consider high or important, I love to go to that person and say, thank you for what you do. If I'm at a sporting event and somebody's picking up trash after it's over, and they're paid to do that, I go to them and say, I want to thank you so much for doing that because it's going to make it clean the next time, and what you're doing is valuable because a lot of times people don't hear that. Do you take value in honoring people? In a close relationship and community, they see who you are, they see where you are, and they honor you. One of the best things to do is maybe in a life group is to sit down with someone, put somebody in the middle and say, all right, everybody, after you know each other and you've kind of got some stuff, say, let's say some good things about this person. What do we appreciate about this person? And these are all good things to be a part of a life group. Now, we have table leaders here, and I'm cutting short. I made it. Yes? Okay. All right. I'm cutting short, and we're going to roll into some time for discussion. Bruce, are you going to I see you have a mic back there. Are you directing, or are you, I'm trying to anticipate.
We're all good. We're ready to go.
All right, perfect. All right, so everybody, there's some questions there at your table. We have life group leaders. If you're at a table by yourself and it worked out that way, move to a table with some more people. And we're going to kind of walk through these groups. Is everybody situated with a group leader? Are we good? All right, let's roll.
Thanks for being a part of Bay West today. Bay West Church meets at 100 Emerson Road in Palm Bay at 11 a.m. on Sundays. Please feel free to check us out at baywestchurch.org, or you can follow us on Facebook at Bay West Church.